Welcome alumni and friends of UNB's Faculty of Kinesiology. My name is Michelle McNeil. I'm the Executive Director of the Associated Alumni, and it's my great pleasure to be hosting you today. We join you today from the unceded and unsurrendered traditional homeland of Wolastoqiyik and Mi'kmaq people. The river that runs by our campus is Wolastoq, along which live Wolastoqiyik, the people of the beautiful and bountiful river. And we are so privileged and honored to be able to join you today from this beautiful campus that sits on this beautiful territory. And wherever you're joining us from today, thank you, Waliwan. We're excited to have you join us for this conversation about the Faculty of Kinesiology, or those of you who graduated a little earlier, Phys Ed. And we're going to talk a little bit about where we've come over the last 50 years, where we are now, how things have changed, stayed the same, and also a little bit about where we might be headed in the future. We're really pleased to have three guests with us today to have this conversation. We have a faculty member, a student, and an alumna joining us. And it's my pleasure now to introduce you to Dr. Wayne Albert, who joined the Faculty of Kinesiology in 1999 and has been serving as Dean since 2010. Wayne has a Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology from the University of Ottawa, a Master's degree from the University of Western Ontario, and a PhD in Occupational Biomechanics from Queen's University. As Dean, he has oversight for the academic programs in the faculty, but also for the recreation services for the university, the Reds Athletics program, and many of the facilities that support our recreation and athletic programs. And his research focuses on occupational biomechanics, so ergonomics, and the prevention of, I had to practice this one, musculoskeletal injuries in the workplace, as well as general lower back health. How did I do there, Wayne?
Perfect. Perfect.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
And representing our alumni, we have Heather Neilson with us, and Heather has a Bachelor of Physical Education in 1972 from UNB, and she's been a long-standing and enthusiastic supporter of the UNB Associated Alumni ever since. During her time on Alumni Council, she served as the chair of the Scholarships Committee and also served as president. A proud alumna, Heather has shown incredible commitment to UNB through her support of students and her dedication to alumni initiatives. With a genuine passion for physical education and living a healthy lifestyle, Heather has worked as a physical education teacher for 30 years. She was awarded the Physical Education Teaching Excellence Award in 2006 and the Fredericton Chamber of Commerce Distinguished Citizen Award in 2011. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Heather.
Again, my pleasure. Thank you.
And representing our students today, we have Alli Muise. And Alli holds a BA in Sociology and Gender Studies, and she'll be graduating with a Bachelor of Recreation and Sports Studies with a concentration in Sport Management in June. She's originally from Woodstock, but has called Fredericton home for the last 9 years. And during her time at UNB, she's been a peer mentor, a captain of the UNB Kin Games team, and she's gained practical work experience through an internship at Golf New Brunswick, where I believe you may have met Heather at one point, and worked on several community projects with Fredericton organizations, including the Charlotte Street Arts Center, where she sits as a board member and secretary. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now that we know each other a little bit better, I thought we'd get started with the conversation, and we're going to start with you, Heather. I'm going to ask you if you can reflect a little bit on your time as a student at UNB. It wasn't the Faculty of Kinesiology then, so a little bit of that time as a student, and then, you know, you've stayed really close with us over the last 50 years, 40 or 50 years. So just wondering if you can give us a bit of the how and why you stayed connected to UNB.
Well, my 4 wonderful years at UNB was all about the people that I met. So staying connected to the university means I get an opportunity to meet lots of individuals. And when I was on council as chair of the scholarship committee, meeting the incredible students, and the course when I took physical education, not kinesiology, it was totally geared towards teaching physical education. So many activities, sports, that's what the focus was, and going out to teach in the community. The way it's changed now, it's fascinating for me because it is totally different, the courses that people take, especially the name, recreation, sports science, kinesiology. Yeah. We did have to take kinesiology, one course. Don't ask me my mark.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And Alli, when you're listening to Heather reflect on the time at UNB being all about people, does that resonate with you at all?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that's one of the biggest things that I'm taking away from here is the connections that I've made, either through friends that I've met in class or through faculty members. I've had some really amazing professors that I plan to stay connected with, and a lot of staff that I've been able to meet and make connections through that as well.
Yeah, the people really are what makes this place special, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Wayne, and the faculty, can you give us a bit of an idea of the holistic approach that you're taking towards society in both the teaching and the research that happens in the faculty?
Sure. I got 2 minutes to do that?
Yeah, you take as long as you want.
That's a challenging piece, yeah. I mean, Heather alluded to the fact that, in the 70s and probably closer in the early 80s, we were much more a physical education program where we focused primarily on developing physical educators. Many of her classmates would have probably gone on to teach in schools or into government positions and worked on policy and developing an active lifestyle for our community. That hasn't gone away, but certainly we've taken a much broader perspective now, much more interdisciplinary, much more multidisciplinary approaches to looking at the individual from what we call from cell to society. And by what I mean by that is we understand how the human body works from a cell perspective. If I go for a run, what's the changes physiologically? What are the changes in our motor patterns? What are the changes in our biomechanics that happen? So that's the pure science behind, and you would have had some exposure to that at a certain level. But we also take that and try to bring it to a holistic approach by understanding also what are the barriers to individuals, what are the barriers to being able to be physically active. Even though we know if we know the physical pieces, how do we now translate that into physical activity programs? How do we make sure that people get physically active? What are the barriers in the community to being physically active? What are the challenges that are in the systems that are in front of us? How do we develop good programming to make sure that we understand so that it comes back to our science and is evidence-based? So it really becomes a very broad, multidisciplinary, as we said, because it actually takes into our recreation folks, our planning folks, our marketing folks, all understanding that part as well as the science part. So much more holistic, I think, than the approach that was taken a little bit more in physical education because it was a little more focused.
Yeah.
Which also allows us to be, our graduates are in a very different position as well when they graduate, to being ready for many allied health professions or being ready for management and more administrative roles in the community, either at the provincial level, the municipal level, or even global level for that matter, in understanding how to promote physical activity, sport, and recreation.
One of the things that I notice that comes out of the faculty that I see is that you're also looking basically for all the different ages to physical activity, right? So it's not just about teaching in the schools. You have programs for seniors, you have program for preschoolers, and sort of everything in between.
It does really cover the lifespan. We have our Kids program, which is really right at the basic level, and then we have many programs for seniors. We have, high performance, and then we also have the general population. Yeah. And that's a big area to cover, right? And understanding all the challenges from cell to society. All of those take different approaches to be able to deliver a good evidence-based programming for those different groupings. But I think it's exciting for the students because they're well prepared for many different directions that they can go in. And we have researchers that are dealing with all of those different components. So therefore, the students are getting that in every class. They're getting that sense of how broad this is, the breadth of the challenges and the excitement of different programming that is available depending on which cohort you decide you're going to focus on. Or if you are going to develop programs for everybody, that it's not just as easy as a cookie-cutter approach. There has to be a very multidisciplinary and innovative approaches to take in order to be successful in those programs.
Yeah. Alli, from your perspective, I would think that there would be students that come in that end up going down a totally different path once they're exposed to all of these different understandings of what kinesiology means. Have you seen that among your peers at all?
Yeah, I've seen some people kind of flip from the science side over to the recreation side. It's a little bit more, community focused, kind of as you alluded to. And I've seen people flip from the recreation side to the science side because they like the more technical aspect of what kinesiology can be.
It's interesting to think about because when you come to university, you don't always know exactly where you want to head. So it's nice that there's an opportunity to figure that out. Wayne, can you talk to us a bit about some of the how you're fostering entrepreneurial activity within the faculty?
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, it's exciting how the world of kinesiology and recreation and sport has just exploded. We're seeing it, the sport arena is really an easy one to explore. I mean, sport globally has expanded incredibly. The GDP for many countries is a lot of it's based on sport. So there's a lot of globalization there where our group has really become involved in that. We've got a lot more international research projects happening. A lot of our MBA students, for example, will focus on different components of sport in an entrepreneurial perspective. But the same thing happens in our recreation and our physical activity. We've got a number of, you've kind of alluded to it already, some programs that we've developed in association with other partners like Diabetes Canada, Heart and Stroke Foundation, and other community partners, for example, who want to develop programs. So there's an opportunity there for us to provide, again, an evidence-based consulting approach to providing programs that are, I think, at a higher quality and provide better results. We have a lot of consulting happening now because I think kinesiology is also being seen as a much more bona fide allied health profession.
Right.
Ontario kind of led the charge with certifying or registered kinesiologists, and now a kinesiologist is actually getting a job as a kinesiologist as opposed to a number of the other kind of allied health professions. So all of those kind of components allow for our students to be somewhat entrepreneurial as well. And I'm always amazed at what our students come up with as well. It's like, I'm taking this part of my course and I've taken that part of what I learned and I'm going to do this now. And you go, oh, I wouldn't have thought about that as a career path, but it ends up being quite an interesting way to approach things. And I know some students have actually linked up with our TME program and developed their own companies and finding golf balls in the water or different clothing apparel. I mean, just the breadth is quite amazing. And I guess however creative you can be, you can provide. I think the breadth and the innovation within our program allows students to become that creative.
Yeah, I'm in a really privileged position with the association where I get to see the news of what our grads go on to do, and it's incredible to me the things that our kin grads go on to do after they're done. They're not all following the same path. They're doing all kinds of different things.
I think part of that too is our Kin 1001 class, I think, really sets up people nicely because we do bring the recreation students and the kin students together right away. A lot of the lectures are theme-based, as opposed to, we're going to talk about sport management, then we're going to talk about biomechanics, then we're going to, I remember one of our lectures was called Sidney Crosby. And you go, okay, what does that mean? Well, what we did is we said, okay, Sidney Crosby gets a concussion. What's the effect of that, right? From a sport management perspective, from a recreation perspective, all of a sudden you can't sell tickets in a certain venue because people came to see Sidney Crosby, but he's hurt. What does it do to the NHL? What does it do to the whole sport organization? Then from a physical science perspective, what is the issues with concussions and long-term athlete challenges? How do we rehab that? What is it from a equipment perspective? So for biomechanics, and how do we develop new equipment to help with concussions or monitor concussions with digital equipment and all that kind of stuff? So, one little question of Sidney Crosby has a concussion, and the ripple effect of that from a kinesiology perspective and a recreation sport management perspective is phenomenal. Yeah. And I don't think as an incoming student you realize that right away until you sit there and go, wow, hang on a second, right? that I didn't think of it that way. Like the rec student's thinking of it this way and go, but that's important. And the science student goes, but that's also important too, right? So I think that's really the fascinating piece of our program and what it does for us.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be hard for us to have this conversation today without recognizing that right now we're sitting in the Richard J. Curry Center, and right next door we have the new kinesiology building. I I know that you could talk forever about it, but wondering if
And
you
have.
could, that's right, and have. But I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the new buildings and what impact that's had on the students, on the faculty, you know, in general, what a difference it's made.
I mean, it's interesting. Like every year at homecoming, you know, we get a group like Heather's class will come in, and of course, you know, we're talking about 40th and 50-year anniversary. So most of the individuals are from 70s or 60s, and of course, when I speak about all the things we're doing, it's like, wow, this is incredible. Many people say, can I come back and do a degree again?
Right.
And a lot of the facilities are really, they're structures, but they're there to support all the things that we already believed in, right? It's not because we have the structures that we're doing these things. We were doing these things, but now we can enhance what we're doing. So the Curry Center came first. It was really a vision of developing a sport and recreation facility. I mean, if you walk the building and you've seen the building, it's fantastic from all 4 floors. Oh, I guess all 5 floors, but the 4 floors that really are functional floors. I mean, it certainly start off with just the room that we're sitting in here. Of course, it has a major impact on our recruiting. You know, athletes come in on the main floor and they go, "Oh, cool gym." That's not yours. The one's upstairs, right? And then we see this facility. I mean, I have a soft spot for the pit, and I'm sure Heather does as well. It was an electric spot to watch athletic events. But the students have done a great job turning this place into a very exciting place to watch our court sports now as well. And of course, then from a community perspective, it turns into a convocation hall, which when you see the transformation, it's amazing, right?
Yeah.
To see that, you know, you drape it and pipe it the right way, you go, this is a fantastic place for events such as a convocation, small, intimate concerts.
Yeah.
These have been fabulous for our community to be part of the university community, to come in and see these kind of events. Certainly our own university community is using the Curry Center for their own health and wellness, and we've done a lot to promote that on campus for staff and faculty of other groups besides kinesiology to come and use the facilities, and it is very well used by our own community, which I think is very, very important. We also have the Andrew and Marjorie McCain Human Performance Laboratory, which state-of-the-art motion capture laboratory in this facility with the running track that bisects the lab, which allows a lot of different motion analysis that you couldn't do otherwise. So it provides us a very different perspective on being able to look at clinical and rehab conditions. Then, of course, 8 years later comes the the kinesiology building, which is attached, which again, from a vision perspective, it was really all about reflecting what we believe in kinesiology. It's wellness and healthy lifestyle. As some may know and some may not know, we are in the process of finishing up our WELL certification, which indicates that the building is built in a way that it promotes health and wellness to our people who work and live in that building. So many people have heard of LEED construction, which is really about the materials that are used in building a building, and they're environmentally friendly. WELL is about the people and how they interact. So you walk in, there's a major staircase which says, take me, right? We have an elevator, we need one for individuals who need it. But the prominent thing you see when you walk in is the staircase, which kind of promotes you taking that. It's a good climb, those 3 stairs, but it's a great way to start my day every day. With lots of lighting, lots of great spaces. And it was really student-centered as well. I mean, our first floor is all of our research laboratories, which really benefits the students in many, many ways. We have our cardiometabolic exercise and lifestyle lab, the cell lab, which is going full throttle. Again, talking to what you mentioned earlier, from cell to society, looking at both young and older populations and trying to keep them physically active and fit, and developing programs through that. We have our motor control lab, our musculoskeletal research lab. We just hired in the last 2 years another individual who looks at the psychology of health behavior, which is a really big bridge that we needed, right? We understand why people are healthy or why they're not healthy, but what we need to understand is why they don't take on healthy lifestyles. We have the Occupational Health Performance Lab, which looks at the occupational health of individuals with musculoskeletal. The second floor, and then of course the teaching labs. So we have 2 large teaching labs that are probably the most spectacular teaching labs that I've seen in the country, right? So our students get are hands-on right as soon as they walk in the door first year. And all the equipment that we use in all of our other labs are right there. Second floor, I call it student floor, which is really about the student engagement. The classrooms are all state-of-the-art classrooms. There's lots of common space for students to spend time between classes, which we didn't have in the old building. That's one thing we lost, was culture and an ability for students to interact and faculty to interact. And we have those spaces in there. We have the Kinnovation space, we have the commons, we have the graduate commons, places for people to rub elbows, right? So there's learning outside the classroom as much as there is in the classroom. And I'll tell you, those spaces are full all the time. I keep getting requests from students, can we get more chairs? Can we get more seats? Post-COVID, hopefully we can get back to that.
That's right.
And then of course the upper floor, which I'm really excited about, is our social cultural researchers have a place to call home. And so there's a focus room, there's a interview room, which allows our group of social scientists to really have a place that they can call an innovative center for them.
Yeah.
And that's something that has been missing over the years. And so that's exciting to me, and it's really, I've seen the impact very quickly. We see students milling around all the time. We see students and faculty meeting in the Kinnovation space. It's set up like a cafe almost. And it's phenomenal how quickly space encourages different behaviors, and that's been phenomenal. That, and of course, just a beautiful living space makes people happy. The living wall downstairs, which was donated by Mrs. Curry. If you've seen it lately, especially with no traffic in the building these days, it's been a very, it's been a wonderful opportunity for it to grow, and it's in full bloom right now.
Oh, I'm going to go check it out.
You have an opportunity. It's a great photo op place as well. So.
Yeah.
Anyways, I could go on for a little while, but I won't.
That was wonderful.
I think other people who have experienced the building should be heard from.
That's right. Well, what I was actually going to ask Alli, so would you have started in Kin before the new kinesiology building opened?
My first year was the first year it was open.
Okay, so.
But I do remember it being built and like kind of looking in and trying to see what it was going to look like, and I've been incredibly impressed. I think, as Dean Albert just said, like, it's such a community space. The first floor lounge is always packed full, no matter what. Like the classrooms are great learning facilities. The way that they're designed makes it easy to like see the board and hear the professors and the living wall is definitely one of my favorite parts too.
A lot of my own friends when I was doing my undergrad were Kin students, and I remember the idea that they very rarely took courses in one spot, right? So they would have something in the gym, and then they would be up in Davery, and then, and so it's just really lovely to hear that I mean, you still might go somewhere else to take courses every now and then, but for the most part, you feel like you have a bit of a home with your faculty.
I think that's the biggest part, is like, it does feel like there's a home base for everybody now, and you're going to get to see the people that you want to see here at some point during the day.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like you're kind of all over the place all the time. You kind of have that place to come back to, either at the beginning of the day to kind of start your day here, or at the end of the day to kind of end it off, just like sitting in the lounge, chatting with friends, or studying, or anything like that. So yeah.
Probably a lot of informal learning too, right?
Yes,
asking for help from one another, and
Yep.
So Heather, these buildings wouldn't have been here when you were a student.
It's fascinating.
Right?
It's just completely fascinating. Like you mentioned, I'd like to start all over again. It's totally different.
Yeah.
No, we were all over the place on campus. We did spend a lot of time at the gym because we had to take all the activities that we took, so that was our home base. But really, it was living in residence where you got together with your buddies. That's where the studying was done, or going to the library. And it was way more focused on one area as opposed to multi-dimensional, taking kinesiology or rec science. It's fascinating. It's totally different.
Yeah.
But fascinating.
So one of the reasons that we asked you to join us today was that you could ask some questions that our alumni submitted. We had alumni submit questions to ask Wayne and Alli. I'm wondering if you wanted to ask a few of the questions for Alli that we had.
Certainly. So, although we've talked about it, what made you want to come back to UNB to get a Bachelor in Rec Science? How is it different from your BKin degree?
So I'll start off kind of as Wayne had alluded. So the way that I would differentiate the BRSS degree and the kin degree is kind of kin is the science technical side. So it's kind of the human movement on the inside of the body, whereas the BRSS focuses on human movement outside the body. So like how we interact with our community, what barriers that we have to face, why people aren't exercising, or why they are exercising, and how we can develop programs to improve the motivation, to improve the experience for people who want to participate in physical activity, whether it's through sport or recreation. And I think that's another really important part, is like there is a differentiation between sport and recreation, because they're both different and they give people a different reason to participate. I wanted to come back to UNB and do my BRSS degree. I've always had an interest in, especially municipal recreation. My dad was a manager at the Civic Center in Woodstock as I was growing up, so I was around a lot of programming, and I got to be a part of a lot of programming and meet a bunch of different people who were kind of in that area. So I'm kind of following in his footsteps a little bit. But yeah, I love the idea of programming for all ages. And I think that's the other thing too about BRSS. It's that from like fundamental learning skills as a baby, as a child, all the way up to senior living, you want to be comfortable, you want to be active for as long as you can in your life. So I think just being able to program and to provide opportunities for people to do that, I think is kind of why I wanted to come back.
Excellent. So have you noticed a difference as an undergraduate student and a mature student?
A little bit, yep. I'm definitely a little bit more focused. Better time management skills. I'm definitely a little bit more attentive in class, maybe. Maybe they're even a little bit earlier. I think just overall, I had some work experience beforehand, so it was kind of easier to almost treat school as like a job. You come 9 to 5, and then you have your evenings, you have your weekends to yourself. And I feel like people have told me that in the past, and I didn't necessarily believe them. So yeah, I came back just mature in general, right? So I think it was just more focused, more interested, more engaged with my professors, and I was a lot less scared to raise my hand and speak up in class, and I'm sure my classmates would agree with me. But yeah, so it was just a more fulfilling experience, I would say, maybe.
Excellent.
Yeah.
You had to live it to
exactly.
realize
Yeah.
that they were right. So how did COVID affect your year this year?
It certainly turned it on its head a little bit. So I got to do in the fall, I had all my courses online, which I was a little nervous about because a lot of the recreation, like the BRSS program courses are very discussion based. It's all about connecting with your peers, creating projects with your peers, discussing, making sure that you're hearing what everybody is saying. It's a lot less technical than the science side in that sense. And so I was a little nervous about like how are the professors going to make sure that we still have that experience. And I felt like my professors did an amazing job. They did, they were really, really good about bringing people out of their shells, because I think that it can be very overwhelming at first to turn your video camera on and to speak. It's a lot different than it is in class, right? So just a weird added pressure. So I think the professors were really, really good about bringing people out and asking the questions that got us talking, and we were able to do kind of breakout rooms and have little discussions and then bring it back to the larger class, which was really, really good. And I feel like we actually, almost in a sense, like discussed better because we knew we weren't going to get that in-person time. So we really took advantage of in-time class time. Yep.
Fabulous. So did you do any in-class class, or was it all?
It was all online in the fall, and then I had an internship kind of at the tail end, so this past semester. So I actually got to do that in person, which was really, really good, and got to use some of that material that I've learned in class in person practically. I got to develop a couple of different programs. I got to assist in different meetings and just kind of gain general real life knowledge through my internship, which was good.
So you took a a not happy situation and made it
Yeah,
positive.
yeah, exactly.
Excellent.
So Wayne, I'm wondering if we can switch a little bit and talk about the MBA in sports and recreation management and sort of what that means from a student perspective, what it means for recruitment. How's that program going? And maybe tell people a bit about it.
So it's a graduate program. So the MBA is a joint program with the Faculty of Management. Faculty of Business still rolls off my tongue.
Right.
Faculty of Management, and has been going on for a good 12, 13 years now. It's a small program, and that's intentional. We haven't, exploded it to 150 people. It runs somewhere between 8 to 12, 15 people. It's course-based. 50% of the courses would be traditional MBA courses, and then the other 50 were really focused on more sport and recreation management. We get great interest every year, international interest, which is really exciting for us because that brings a very different classroom together.
Right.
You get people coming with very different experiences from their own recreation and sport organizations from their countries, which allows everybody to grow a little bit and learn from different structures because they can be quite different across the globe. So that's been really a wonderful experience. Majority of it has been in person, except for last year, which again allowed the international students to continue to enjoy the program because it was online. But certainly the program has done very well. The students have done very well from it. Most students do an internship with that program. And it's a wide range of experiences that people get involved in, from municipal sport to professional sport, to NHL level professional sport, as well as the recreation piece, from the level of municipal recreation to being involved in more global conversations. We've had students who have been very instrumental in working with the new framework for recreation that was developed back in 2016, I believe. Some of our students were involved in managing some of the components with respect to developing that framework. That's exciting, right? You're having an impact. I think the smallness helps with that, being able to provide really good experiences. I think if you get too large a program, it's very hard to find those very engaging and useful internships that the students really benefit from. And that's, of course, parlayed into students doing great things once they leave the MBA program and getting into jobs from different components of the recreation and sport world.
Yeah.
Right from marketing in the St. John Sea Dogs office to working with Deloitte in insurance companies that have really taken a big interest in the sport world, in agency world, and those components. So it's been really quite a breadth of opportunities and experiences and engagement within the students. And I think we'll probably keep it, in a very small 12 to 15 person cohort and not really spend it at this point anyways.
Yeah, I think I remember there being students from that program in some of my own MBA courses when I was going through it. Must have been just new at the time, so it's interesting to hear that's continued and what people have gone on to do with that. So I would have been in class with some of the people taking that. So Heather, do you have any questions from our alumni for Wayne?
I do. He's mentioned a lot about the courses, but one of the questions was, do you feel there should be a change in offerings? Do you see any in the future? Would you offer anything different?
I think where things are going to change a little bit, or expand maybe is the better word, is in the delivery side of our profession and discipline. The world's changing from a digital perspective, from a technology perspective. And more of that is helping inform us and engaging people, right? I mean, if you read some of the literature on Industry 4.0 and the Internet of Things and all of these components that are mind-boggling a little bit with respect to where the world's going from a digital perspective, I think we need to be ahead of that in order to be able to make sure that people still remain physically active and how we engage them in being physically active. and not fighting necessarily the digital world, but embracing it. So, from a biomechanics perspective, I know some of our faculty members are looking at, wearable devices and developing much more enhanced wearable devices that you as an individual get feedback. And people are gadget people now, right? They want everything has to be on their Apple Watch, everything has to be wired in so that I know exactly what I'm doing, when I'm doing it. So we need to embrace that as much as we possibly can. We're embracing it in our teaching and the way we teach and the styles we teach. And COVID certainly made that a different perspective for us. Some of it's working, some of it didn't work, right? But that's part of the learning process too. But going forward, if you're going to program for the community, you need to embrace that in order for your clients to be wanting to come to you as opposed to someone else who's doing things with the technology. So I think that's a big piece that we need to keep our eye on. We're already doing it. I mean, one of our faculty members is dealing with virtual reality. And not virtual reality as you would have thought, more so from a sport management perspective and giving you fan experience, for example, or sport marketing experience. So you may not have been able to go down to Shea Stadium, but now you put the virtual reality and you can watch a Game 7 championship game and live the experience. So now as a sport marketing person, what would you have done differently? How would you make the fans have a better experience? What would you do as far as setting up the event? So not even having to leave the classroom, you can now educate a classroom on what that kind of experience is. Trying new activities, for example. Some people may not have the money or the ability to go and try something new or don't want to invest in the money. Try from a virtuality perspective first. Do you like it? Then maybe you'll invest a little bit more and ramp yourself up. So the opportunities are kind of endless in that perspective with respect to digital. I know from our behavior psychology folks, using apps has been a major focus because everybody's tied to their phones, right? So again, embracing the technology and how do we as educators find the way to still want people to get out there and be physically active for real, but how does that technology work with it? So I think that's really a big piece. We've got a lot of good work being done from our rec folks as well with respect to community development. How do we become more inclusive with respect to individuals that don't have the financial means? Food security is an issue for many of our folks. We have a higher influx of immigration coming to Canada. How do we make sure that they get engaged in activities? Or how do we make sure we program the right activities to make sure that they're engaged in our community? Fredericton is small, for example. So how do we make sure we have the breadth of activities that are going to be inclusive to our community of immigrants that chose here as their new home? So I think there's a lot of really great things that we are doing from a research perspective, but also from a programming perspective that are helping our students be prepared with the new technologies that are coming and coming rapidly. That's the difference too, right? I mean, even when I was in school, even the changes in the equipment that I saw in the 7 years it took me to get my PhD compared to what I see in the last 5 years, it's phenomenal, right? The wireless technology is,
Fascinating. Well, that inclusivity was a question also, but how many students are enrolled in the bachelor and master's programs?
So we're just north of 510
Wow.
in our undergraduate program, and we're about I would say about a 55 to 60% women to men in the undergrad program, and then our graduate program is about 60 if you take the MBA program, our MA program, our MKIN program, and then also our UE program. So our University of West Indies, we have a joint program with them. It's a course-based master's in sports studies. So with all of that group, it's about 60 to 65 graduate students at different levels from master's to PhD.
Where do we fit in the university offerings as a whole? Where does kinesiology fit? Numbers.
Size-wise? We're probably somewhere in the range of fourth to fifth largest on campus now. I mean, arts and science and engineering are the top three.
Okay, I just wondered.
Enrollment-wise, but yeah, we keep our numbers up there.
Excellent.
Exciting. It's exciting, and if you come to you've come to the new building, because now that we're all in that building, between classes, there's a lot of people in the hallways, which is exciting,
fun,
and energetic.
Excellent. Okay, I think I covered most of the
You're good.
the questions.
All right. So, Alli, for you, you've been involved outside of the classroom as well in the community, the broader community, and here at UNB. Can you talk a little bit about how that's enhanced your student experience?
Yeah, I think just the connections that I was able to make through that. I've been able to kind of grow my community within UNB, and I've kind of got, like that solid group of friends that I've kind of, you go to when you've got a problem that you need to solve, whether it's studying or professional. So I guess, yeah, the professional and personal connections that I've been able to make while I was here is really enhance my student experience. And I think the professors as well, and the faculty, the staff, everybody they're just so kind and so welcoming and warming. And when you walk in the building, you don't walk past a person without saying hi, really, at the end of the day. And I think that's been a really, really nice experience to have here. And I think the professors are genuinely concerned about your experience at the same time. They want to make sure that the things that you're studying are the things that interest you, and that they're bringing their own interests in while also exploring what the students are kind of want to focus on or what they're interested in. So I think that's kind of really, really been nice to see. And I think I've had some really amazing experiences outside of UNB that, again, just the people you get to meet, right? You get to meet all walks of life and kind of learn from each other and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
So, Wayne, I know that a lot of KIN students are actively involved in the community, both the UNB community and beyond. Is there some intentionality with that in KIN? Does it happen naturally because of the students you recruit, or is there something there where you're encouraging them from a faculty perspective?
Oh, I think it's a big part of our program and our philosophy. There's no secret. Universities have budget cuts after budget cut, but our faculty have always indicated that they're not willing to get rid of the experiential learning component of their program. It starts right in our first year. Right? The new teaching labs allow our first year students to actually start collecting data on themselves. Not understanding everything, but certainly to actually do that. A lot of our classes are problem-based, and we oftentimes take a community issue and deal with it. And we've developed, the active programs for Fredericton, for Oromocto, for Ottawa. That's intentional, right? And the student then really is doing real life practical work of what they're learning in the classroom. And the biggest part for me, I always tell them, is you're getting your education, but you're also CV building, right? I have a fourth year ergonomics class, and I said, we're working with a company, for example, and we'll say, at the end of the day, you've just done a consulting, right? We've spent the whole class, you collected data, you analyzed it, you went back to the HR department, you talked to them about it, and now you've just done a full ergonomic assessment. And they may implement things and they won't implement. That's the consulting world. Right. We did the same thing in most of our classes. You're going to see that component in there. So I think there's probably as much learning outside the classroom as there is in the classroom, and that's huge. I think that's the gem of our program. I really do, and that's right through our recreation program, right through to our science program. We find that in every level, from first year to fourth year. It's not until you don't wait till your fourth year to become involved in experiential learning. It's right in the first year. Yeah. And it's same, but it's very similar to our research, right? Our research is very community based. We're Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada is our living laboratory. We're doing research that's helping the population that we live in, and that's important to us. So it translates into our teaching and into the kinds of things that most of our students are going to go off and do anyways. They're going to be involved in helping individuals, and if you don't have that experience, then it's a real challenge for you to go out and do it right away if you only learned it in a book. Yeah. Right.
One of the things that I hear often from people about UNB, and it's partly tied to when Heather was talking earlier about the size of the university, but the exposure that undergraduate students get to research, so not just to that, the internships and co-ops and all that, but to actually be part of research activities is something I think that you don't necessarily get everywhere as an undergraduate student. And so I think in KIN, with the new building in particular, there's probably a little bit more opportunity for that. Is that accurate? Or
I believe so. I think we're right sized as well. Yeah. You get into bigger universities where you get 1,000 and 2,000 incoming students. It's very challenging to be experiential in your first couple of years. I think the spaces are very helpful. Like, you walk in on the first floor, and all the research labs are there.
Yeah.
The Canadian Sports Centre Atlantic is there, right? All the components that students can get involved in are walk in and there they are. You know, and you'll notice there's a lot of glass in our building,
Yeah.
right? Which means you're a bit of a fishbowl, but you're also, the students get to see what's happening, right? They can look in. They can see what's happening on a daily basis, and that's, I think, very important. We have a very active honors program.
Yep.
We have also a very active directed studies program. So students have many different opportunities to get involved in the research. There's a lot of research studies going on. I think we actually are the number one user of REB on campus with respect to human testing, right? So we're always looking for participants, and where can we get our participants? Well, in our undergraduate program, and we always encourage students right from the dean's address to say, if you can get involved in as much research as you possibly can, because that also helps you learn what you're interested in.
Right.
You know, you may not have thought you were interested in, exercise psychology, but then you got involved in a project and go, oh, this is really interesting. Or vice versa, you get involved in one of our social scientists research projects, and you become part of the focus group, and you go, this is really interesting how they take on projects and think of questions, and that's more of the way I think. So
Yeah.
As much as I think it's all part of the experience. That's as much part of the experiential experience as going out and being a part of the community, understanding what the breadth of the kinds of research that your own faculty members are doing is massive, and it's multidisciplinary. So oftentimes we're working with other units on campus. You know, we work with the business faculty, we work with engineering faculty, we work with biomedical, we work with nursing, some forestry. I mean, so there's probably very few faculties on this campus that we don't have collaborations with. So the student, again, gets to see the multidisciplinary approach to that.
Yeah, one of the beauties of UNB for sure.
Yeah.
So Alli, the experiential learning that you engaged in when you were doing your internship, can you talk a little bit, just building on that conversation, about how that then impacted your learning in the classroom?
Yeah, so I guess my internship was right at the very end of my degree, and I did do a couple courses during that, but I found more so the classroom bit impacted the internship. I felt like I was going in with some experience already. Kind of as Wayne has said, we have a lot of different experiential learning opportunities in all levels, and in this past year I got to do a directed study, and we typically in a non-COVID year we would get to do some more community engagement, but we had some really, really amazing guest speakers, and we've done a career cafe in the past, so you kind of get to see different disciplines that you can go into. So I felt like I was able to take those experiences and apply them to my internship. So I didn't feel like I was going in, I had no idea what was happening. Like I felt competent and confident in my ability to meet the expectations of both my supervisor and of the faculty and the program itself. So yeah, I think they go well hand in hand, very well.
Yeah, and then I think when you graduate, you feel even more confident because you've got the classroom stuff and the experiential stuff and then some work experience.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Well, I could speak with the three of you all day, but I won't keep you for much longer. I thought maybe we could end with just some reflections from each of you on what the best part of the UNB experience has been for you. And I'm going to start with you, Heather.
The best part of being at the university?
Yeah, anything to do with your connection with UNB, what the best part has been for you.
Meeting the dynamite people that you keep in touch forever.
Yeah.
And well, you learn every time I come to a meeting or come to a presentation. It's continually I'm learning about how much I don't know. I'm learning a lot.
Yeah.
No, it's been always the people, and I still keep in touch. I might not see one of my friends from university for 10 years, and then we have a get-together, and it's just like we were never apart. You just keep continuing on in the same type of thing. So it's always for me been the dynamite people that you meet.
Yeah. And you having been in the faculty when it was a little bit smaller, and then you mentioned you lived in residence too, so you probably had double, right? So,
it was exactly.
Yeah.
You meet people from everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'd also be interested to know, does anybody graduate now in kinesiology and go and teach physical education?
Yes.
Phew.
We have quite a few, actually. And I know right now three of the physical education teachers at FHS, for example, are graduates of our program. And I think every school has a graduate from our program teaching physical education.
Good. Excellent.
One of my closest friends from Neil House did his kin degree, and he's a phys ed teacher, so it's definitely still out there.
Good.
Alli, how about you? What's been the best part for you?
Oh my goodness, I could go on forever. I guess first off, the education. I think that, as I've already said, I feel very confident and competent to go out into the workforce, whether it's continuing to work with Golf New Brunswick, or whether it's moving on to something like municipal or provincial, or maybe I do move into something more like professional sport. I feel no matter where I end up, I'm going to be able to succeed. And I think second, just to echo what Heather said, the connections, professional and personal, right? It's hard to walk into a building now without seeing somebody from UNB. Everybody seems to come from there. So I think that UNB connection is also really important too.
Yeah, and you touch on an important point there, because it's the personal ones, it's the friendships that you'll keep forever. And some of these aren't always mutually exclusive, but then it's also the professional connections, right? The number of times that I've called on someone that I went to UNB with to sort of connect with them professionally and figure something out together. Almost as often as the number of times we get together for a beer. So, Wayne, it must be a bit of a relief for you as the dean to hear Alli say the quality of the education is the best part. So,
absolutely,
there you go.
It's always good to hear that. I mean, and that, for me, it's there's lots to talk about, but I mean, I think what I really like about our program is the integrative approach, right? So I guess I feel fortunate. I've got recreation, athletics, and the academic programs which work together, right? And for me, that ends up becoming that UNB becomes part of the other community, the community as a whole, right? I can't go to a sporting event without meeting people in the community who know about our program because of their association with one of our programs, right? I get people from the community always, writing to me and saying, your students did this program for us at this community event, or they're running a program at one of the long-term care facilities, and if without that, my parents wouldn't have the activity level. That's a pride moment for us, right? I mean, what our students are doing and the impact they're having in the community gives you chills. I mean, it just you can't put a price on that. It's fantastic. It's rewarding. It's rewarding for the students, but it's also rewarding for us who are producing a good quality education for our students who go out and do fabulous things, no matter what they do, whether that be at the community level or at the global level. Yeah. And we've had stories of all of those, and which is amazing. But I really appreciate the impact we have on our immediate community right here in Fredericton, and it's pretty hard to go anywhere without hearing about it from the community.
I realized as you were talking that there was one part of your job that we haven't talked about very much at all yet, and I know my own family is desperately missing watching varsity level sports compete. So hopefully this coming year we'll be able to be back in the Curry Center, or out on the soccer pitch, or up in the Aiken Center. Wondering if you can just very quickly tell us a bit about the athletic experience this year for the students.
Sure.
And
I've talked to all of our coaches and given them big shout outs. The ability to continuously motivate and engage the student athlete this year was tremendous, as it was for our students, engaging. I mean, you talked about how our faculty went above and beyond to try to find ways to learn the technology and figure out how we're going to engage during this COVID year and using different technologies. Same thing had to happen from an athletics perspective. And the challenge was you just never knew, right? Mm-hmm. So there was this hope at maybe the end of September, hope maybe at the end of October, hope at the end of, so there was always this glimmer of hope that we may see some competition, which of course never happened. So it was a full year of training. But I'll tell you, we had probably between 85 and 90% of our student athletes were back on campus with the team, training all year long. They're probably in the best shape they've ever been in, but of course never did see any competition. A couple of games here at the end of the season for some exhibition games. But one thing they did realize also, though, is that they were in a bit of a privileged perspective in the sense that the rest of the country, many of their friends weren't even training because they weren't allowed, right? I mean, Ontario, Alberta, BC were really in lockdown and still are in lockdown. So you try to remind people what you do have as opposed to not focus on what you don't have, and that's a real challenging piece. But I give full credit to our teams and our coaches for finding a way to motivate and keep them engaged, just as our instructors did with all of our students. Because online learning is one thing. After 3 months of it, it's a little bit more challenging. After 6 months of it, it's even more challenging, right? So, but we're certainly looking forward to having athletics back, and the athletes are looking forward to it. And there's a hype. I sit on the U Sport board. There's a hype across the country to see this coming back, and you're seeing it at the professional levels.
Yeah.
It's coming back. So the sport organizations have done a fantastic job finding ways to get back to athletics. And we just hired 2 new coaches, as you probably know. One, our women's volleyball coach and our men's basketball coach, both very high pedigree and looking for great things on the court, on the soccer pitch, and in the rink. I think we're going to be competitive in all of our sports, in our cross country and our swimming. I think we're going to be competitive everywhere in all those levels. And I'm really looking forward to seeing them all get back. Because it brings an energy to the campus as well. Right?
It really does. And I know our alumni like to engage in the sporting activities as well. And I'll tell you, I've got 2 kids at home and 2 nieces that just can't wait to get back into the rink to cheer on the men's and women's hockey teams. So other sports too, but particularly for them, they make a big impact on the younger athletes. So thank you so much to all 3 of you for being with us today. I really enjoyed the conversation. It went by much more quickly than we could have imagined. And for our alumni at home, thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. If you had any questions that you would have asked had you been here in person, please send them to me at alumni@unb.ca. If I can answer them, I will, and if not, I'll send them over to Wayne and he'll help out. And I do really hope one day soon we'll be able to invite you all back to campus, whether you've already seen the new kinesiology facilities or not. We'd love to have you back on campus, have your energy here, whether you're cheering on a game or coming back for a reunion. I know that day is coming soon and we can't wait for it. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great day.